Oh, okay. I think we will start in like maybe in 5 minutes time for everyone to get ready, and then we will start. Just like 5 minutes and then we start. So that being said, I will just prepare the slides that I have for tonight. We will start with everything here. I think I'll just go ahead and like share my entire screen cover. That might be just the best solution because I will also have to share MATLAB at some point. So maybe it's just better if I can share my entire screen. Okay. All right. Yeah, that might be just better like this. Yeah, okay. Now it's confusing because I'm looking that way and want to have that uh you know, that presentation as if I'm looking this way. I don't know if I'm recording over here. I guess I'm recording over here. Oh, um, about that time, it's about that time, it's about that time. But I think we can start. I think we can start. Hello everybody. And if you're new here, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome, and I hope you will enjoy this session. If you're a regular, welcome back. I hope you've had a good time so far. Yeah, just get ready and hopefully we'll all enjoy this session. So today we'll start another short series of videos. Another short series of interactions. I mentioned figures because I'm recording it for those who cannot attend, and we will share this after with those. So it's basically us together trying to, exchange and talk about statistical analysis. And then I know some of you guys, especially those who are regular, they're gonna be like, "Oh, again, we're talking again about this thing." Well, it's not a bad thing to repeat yourself. So we will, yeah, we will discuss again some cool and simple points or aspects of the thing, and especially today because um, I've had this conversation with a professional who was like trying to learn more about the domain. And apparently it was difficult just because, you know, that professional doesn't have a background in math or um, computer science or programming, stuff like that. So the idea of starting this new journey, learning just statistics was a bit hard uh, to think about or like to conceptualize or to imagine. But here we are today trying to do it. So hopefully we'll find a way to make it easy. So shout out to the professional. And yeah, it reminds me that no matter where you are in your career, no matter the level that the level of difficulty that you've been able to achieve, or the problems that you've been able to solve, you will always have that. I mean, you need to always have that. I don't know how to describe it, like, but the will to learn every day, the will to get more. knowledge, like the will to have something new in your background to learn new skills. You need it so that you can reach the your top level or like the top level of your performance. It's not just about science. I think it's the same thing for everything that you're doing in life. If you're obsessed about it and you do it with good intentions, of course, you will have the, the opportunity to reach the top level in your domain. So that was just a quick reminder. So today we're going to talk about descriptive statistics, exploratory statistics, and inferential statistics. Yeah, I know this is like trying to say, oh my God, this is just like the 101. Yeah. We will start with the 101 today because it's important for some of us. I mean, even when you are an expert, it's always important to go back and double check your background, you know, if you still have it. So yeah, we will talk about those today. And we will also try to build the bridge between those basic concepts and what we do in geostatistics. And we will have some very simple examples just for illustration, of course, in MATLAB, where the idea behind those would be just to uh, make it simple in a way, but also explain the difference between those concepts. It's easy for someone who is not uh, uh, like just a statistician or a statistician. It's easy for those who are not in the domain to uh, use descriptive statistics when they're actually doing inferential statistics. It's really easy to get confused with those. And it's also easy to get confused with exploratory statistics and inferential statistics. So we will cover those simple aspects today. And yeah, so after that, this just for you so that we can uh, walk through together. So let's jump into it. Yeah, today what we will talk about is what is descriptive statistics, what is creative statistics, and what is statistical inference. We will also try to mention the link that we can make between those and just statistics. And we will cover some live demo and whatnot. For those, I think the main point is use tools such as histograms, box plot, and scatter plots to explain those different things. So, so you will probably, I mean, you will have to agree with me on this one because if you don't agree, then there is an issue. You would have to agree with me that today a lot of what we're doing is data related. I don't know if you can name a domain or an activity that you can do without the concern about the data that you use to guide yourself or to lead yourself into that activity. So a lot of them, we use a lot of data to lead those activities. There's a huge amount of data used to lead mining and petroleum exploration. Same for mining extraction and petroleum production. There's a huge amount of data when you talk about environmental studies, especially when you have like several components that you want to bring together to have like an interpretation or something out of it. So there's a huge amount of data in those situations. There's a huge amount of data when you talk about farming. And in this case, it's especially tricky because someone will say, well, if you think about that poor guy in a village who is trying to farm plants, how do you think he's using data? I would say, my friend, he's using data in a way. The only difference will be maybe he doesn't have the tools that you have when you talk about data. Maybe he's not using the same vocabulary, but he's also using data at some point. I mean, in a way, we are all using data today. Same for biomedical industries. It's the same thing. You will have to use data This is simply because we try nowadays when we think about what we're doing as an activity, we try to connect our productivity with different variables, and those variables are not always uh, those coming from what we are like directly doing. Sometimes we have to do out of the scope of what we're doing. Maybe you're doing farming, but you have to look out of it. But okay, I'm doing farming, but what is I don't know. Think about anything that you can have out of that area, and you will probably have a factor or like a auxiliary variable that you can take over there and bring into your activity to, you know, maybe empower your productivity. So we use data almost all the time. Even when we don't know, we are using it. So another thing that I know we will all agree on is that data processing is predominant. And matter of fact, if you want to sound a bit up to date, just learn more about data, and that's it. Everyone out there is trying to speak that language. So just learn a few stuff, even if you don't have that power to learn big, I don't know, big things or learn crazy. Just learn a few stuff and go out there, try to use it. You will see. You will sound up to date. You will sound up to date because a lot of people now try to use that language. It's important. So now we have to agree that uh, ideally you want to use statistical analysis to process the data that you have. Now, yeah, we have all those fancy and super complex uh, methods that we're using, talking about machine learning, AI, and all that. But if you go behind, so if you just forget about the words like machine learning, AI, and go behind to see what is happening behind those big words, you will see that at some point you have to do some statistical analysis. You have to use some, of course, you have to use some mathematics, but the main part of it is like trying to get some pattern out of the data that you have so that you can use those to inform yourself. So basically, what we're talking about right now is you have a set of data or a set of series. Those are like a combination of values and maybe criteria. Then you want to understand the actual trend behind them, or maybe something else within those, and you want to describe those patterns within the data. And most likely you will use everything that you've learned for forecasting purposes. Most likely, not always, but like this chart will say, you would have to make some decision after. So that's it. That's the like the main scheme of it, the main scheme of dealing with data and using statistical analysis to handle it. So today we want to talk about few things, and to start that conversation, I would say whenever you're trying to process a data set, or you have some values in the database, or you have database that you want to use to, I don't know, make something and try to get something out of it, always ask yourself, what like, you always want to question the size of that database. Always. If you think about doing something like going out and try to collect some samples to know what's the geological configuration of a region, again, we all have to agree that you don't have the money to go out there and assemble everything. You will have to collect a few, come back and use the few, use that to get something, like some information. So the size matters a lot more than here. And I will tell you why it's important, because depending on what you're doing with uh, the data that you have, you are doing something that you cannot like it will be like you're doing A and you don't want to say I'm doing B, right? You want to say I'm doing A because you know exactly what you're doing. So um, now that we know the size is the concern, or like the size, knowing the size of the data that we have to process is important. You need to start thinking about what's the difference between describing a population, exploring a population, and running some statistical inference on that population. I will say it right away because I need that point to put stuff in the mind so that when we moving forward, it will be like a repetition for you. If you have the ability to collect all the data that you want from a population, let's say I'm trying to question the grade in gold in a locality and I can collect, like I can sample all the domain, like the exhaustive domain, like every continuously sample that domain. Then I will describe the data that I collected. That would be like a description because I have all the information needed from that domain continuously again. I want to emphasize the word continuous over here. And so you basically describe that population at that point because you have everything. You're not, it's not like you have a sample. You literally you have everything. So you would describe and then you would try to run some analysis to learn more about it, the the grade and gold, but at the time it's like basically you describe it. If you go out there and collect just a few samples and you come back, you can describe that sampling set, but then you're not describing the the grades, the grades in the gold in that locality, but you are doing a statistical inference on that random variable because you don't have the entire information to say and describing it. This is like at that moment you say you're doing inferential statistics instead of descriptive statistics because you only have a sample set to understand the big guy. So you're not describing the big guy, but you're running some inference on it. When you run those analysis and use tools such as histograms, box plots, and everything else that you can use to get some pattern out of the data, you're exploring the data. This is where you said, okay, right now I'm doing exploratory statistics, or as they're calling now, exploratory data analysis. So remember this, this is like the main difference between those three concepts. So we were talking about that. So what can you describe and how do you do that? And then do we have an example? Yes, we have on that tab. And what do you need to know more on this topic? So basically you describe the data, but what is the data? Like when we say the data, what are you collecting? You're collecting something. We can call everything data, but that data is about what? Age, salaries, rate, I don't know, velocities, what? So there is something behind the data, and that that thing is what you're trying to that thing is what you're trying to describe or understand by the meaning of the data. So you have those data just to help you into the journey of understanding what is behind, or maybe let's think about the case where we're doing mining exploration and we want to know how continuous the mineral resources below the surface. So the data that you're collecting is just the support that you will use to understand that thing, like that question, how continuous, like what is the horizontal expansion of that mineralization. So the data itself is just a support. There's something behind it. that you're interested in, and that's why you use the support to get information about that too. So when you have all the data, what you do is just descriptive statistics. So again, all the data is something, but let's go back to the vocabulary that we use in statistics, and let's call that thing a random variable. If you know exactly all the realization of that random variable, then everything that you will do on it will be like a descriptive statistic because you know everything about that random variable. So you will describe it because you know everything. So you will have a set. And by the way, this website is a good reference. I mean, I, uh, I found it interesting in a way it's simple. You can easily understand everything that is being mentioned in the website on the page, and I think it's a good place to start if you don't have like a solid background in statistics, and they have like a very cool and simple example that you can use to better understand those concepts. So basically, you have again your random variable, and you have all the realization of that random variable, and you run some uh, computations on just to understand what you have at that moment you're describing the random variable because it's not a sampling of it. It is the entire set coming from that random variable. So yeah, you will have to collect some information about that set. This is another word that we use a lot in statistics to make a difference between the data as we usually define it and the data as you will have to define it when you do a statistical analysis. If you think about a set, it's easy to say, okay, I have these many items in the set because, and maybe let's say I have like a bag full of, I don't know, coins. I can count them, you know, but I can also have like, because there's a difference between countable random variables and continuous random variables that those that you cannot really count because they are, think about anything between 0 and 0.5. We have, I don't know, I don't even know if I need to describe it more. It's like, it's a continuous step. So you have like an infinity of possibility between 0 and 0.5. It's just, you just have too many values between those two binaries. But if you think about numbers like 1, 2, 3, like integers, you can count them. So if you have like 10 points in the back, you can say I have 10 points in the back. So should make a difference between those two concepts. So you can run statistical analysis for both, like for discrete random variables and continuous random variables. But it's important to know that when you have something continuous, it's hard. I don't think it's possible to say that you can count. I don't think. Maybe it's possible, but I don't think so. If it's possible, then someone will let me know. But I don't think it's possible. You can count when it's discrete because it's like 1, 2, 3. But when it's continuous, you cannot. So you will have a set, and you want to use that set to learn more about everything that is behind the data that you collected. And so you will question uh, the data to learn about like the central tendency, and that will be stuff like the mean, the median, the mode. You question the data to learn more about the variability of dispersion. That will be the skewness, the kurtosis of the variance. Everything that we just mentioned is related to what we call in statistic moment generating function because uh, a random variable can be described by his PDF if it's continuous or the PMF. The PDF is the probability density function. The PMF is the probability mass function. when you have a discrete random variable. And then you can also describe a random variable using non-generating function. So usually, yeah, it's a bad idea just to stick with the PDF and say, oh, I know everything about this distribution. Sometimes you really want to use those moment generating function. They usually call them MGF to learn more about the RV, like the no the RV random variable is RV, right? Yeah. So those like the dispersion, for example, the variance is gonna be the second order moment generating function. The skewness is the third order moment generating function of the kurtosis, I think, is the fourth order moment generating function. So you use them to learn about variability. Skewness will tell you about the symmetry of the distribution, and the fourth one will tell you about the flatness. Is it a flat distribution or not? What else? This is everything you use when you do descriptive statistics. Now, wait, yeah, well, we will get back to it, but I just wanted to show like something real quick overview. Like you have um, two sampling sets, and then you want to learn, for example, about the central tendency and the dispersion of those sampling sets. And what you do is basically what we just mentioned. You'll compute the mean, compute the median, the mode, the variance, skewness, and kurtosis. And then you can, if you want, if that's the reason why you're using them, you can compare those values and learn more about those properties. And over here, we are showing the histograms for the two sampling sets, but we will get back to it when we talk about uh, experimental statistics. So if you want to learn more about descriptive statistics, because we just mentioned a few, but you can learn about. So I am suggesting these two books for you. Is you can use them. You can, I don't know, depending on the field where you're coming from, you can have different other references, but I think these two, they are good if you are a beginner. This is something good for beginner, and this is something good for someone who doesn't want to read something like the like this is not something you would read because you're from business analysis, or maybe this is something you want to read because you do geosciences. Data processing, this book is like for a broader audience. And this one is good for beginners because this is where you will have like basic principles about summary statistics and how we use those statistical methods to help learn uh, from the data. So now let's talk about exploratory statistics, and let's try to make a difference between what we just mentioned and statistical inference. So to make it short, you do exploratory statistics when you use tools to learn something from the data. So if, for example, you have something that uh, you want to like compute so that you will understand a particular aspect of the data, you are doing exploratory statistics. An example, let's go back here and look at this plot. When you see this, you have like what? A couple of beans, and then you have the count in this case for each given you this histogram. And what you can learn from this is that the distribution is not simply symmetric. And this is something we've learned from the data. Basically, we're exploring the data. This is exploratory statistics. You can question the data like this. How many times do I have, for example, the item with the label 2 within the data that I'm analyzing? By doing that, you are doing exploratory statistics because you're questioning data to understand something particular. So you want to learn something from the data. So whenever you do this, whenever you try to learn something from the data, you're exploring the data, so you're doing exploratory statistics or what they call exploratory data analysis. So basically, again, it's just like using box plots, box plots. The X and the S is kind of confusing, but yeah, box plots, or histogram. So before we end this presentation, I'd like to show you something in MATLAB. But I think it's better if we can just jump into it and show you. So with this one, I'm trying to help you understand the difference between describing and inferring from the data. I hope you will achieve this goal by just listening and following this presentation over here, because I think this is the end point of it. If you can understand this, then we're good to go. And yeah, obviously, it would be good if you have a way to discriminate between those two versions. So back over here, we have two sentences, and we call them, let's say V1 and V2, because it takes like a few seconds to say that. So V1 and V2, and they have like different size. So you can plot the histogram for each, and this is, like I just mentioned, this is just exploring the data, trying to get something out of it. Ideally, over here, I was trying to show something. You can have a continuous, well, you can have a random variable that you presume it's from a standard normal distribution, meaning the average is 0 and the variance is 1. And you can extract some sampling set from that. If I know exactly these parameters and I know exactly the distribution, both V1 and V2 are from sampling X. So they should be able to represent X in a meaningful way. But you are not sure because you're not sure the sampling uh, method you're using is appropriate for the study you want to conduct or is a good one. You don't know. So here I was just trying to show you that you can have the same initial random variable, which is in this case like the main population, and you can sample the main population in two different ways, and you will have two different sampling sets. They will have different histogram, meaning they will have different properties, even if they're coming from the same main population. So be very careful when you when you deal with that kind of situation. Don't just assume that because it's coming from the main population, if you run the same if you run two different sampling strategies, you will have the same sampling set. You will have two different sampling sets. So next, we will assume we know nothing about X, and then we want to learn from the data that we have. So we want to learn from the sampling sets. So again, you run your code to have like the mean, the median, the mode. So you have central tendency for both the dispersion for both, and then you can build this table and have the summary statistics of your two sampling sets. This is one way to describe. Of course, you can do many more. Like there is just too much that you can do. So I will try to make it short over here. This is one way to describe the two sampling sets. Now what do we have? You want to learn more. You want to know something, something else. You are interested in something else. You you want to know if you can go from the here now, because when you complete when you produce histogram and you have those count over here. This is like a PMS. It's like a probability mass function. But it's not exactly a probability mass function, but it's close to it. But you want to know if you can go from there and have like a PDF so that you can compare the PDF to what you've learned in class. Like you know the shape of the standard normal distribution, you know the shape of uh, uh, the beta distribution or gamma distribution. You know, you have all those shapes in mind, so you want to have like a PDF so that you can compare and see you can see which one is close to what you already know. So again, this is just exploring the data. So at that moment, you're basically just doing some uh, explorative statistics. So this is what we call explorative statistics. You will compute I mean, you will produce the histogram. Again, now you change them into PDF. In MATLAB, it's pretty simple. You just have to use some uh, pre-defined commands so that you can convert them into PDF in a way. It's not exactly a PDF, but you know, the way this can be, you can assume this as a, we are using PDF. So next thing you will do is you can use the again, you can use like some predefined commands in MATLAB to make some box plots. And over here, we were trying to run a simple comparison between the first sampling set that we have and something that we collected from uniform distribution. So you will see this one is going from -1 to 1, and the mean is a bit above the 0 compared to this one where the mean is like kind of at 0. And you also see that you have more values over here compared to what you have over here. So this is one way to use the box. And yeah, just to show you that you can do like several stuff in MATLAB, so we can plot them separately and compare if you want. Or you can use scatter plots to also analyze the sampling sets that you have. So same thing in this case, you have V1 that you plot and you have V2 that you plot. Again, you can use these just to like get something out of it. Here over here, you will see that you have more values going above 4 and -4 compared to here where you have just a few of them going above those values. So this is one way to get some information out of the data set that you're analyzing. And you can plug them all together. And here what you learn is that you have more items on V2 compared to what you have inside V1. Just look at the weight of this bank. You see this one is larger than this one. So you have more items in V2. So this is one way, again, to learn from the data. So you have like that set. I don't know exactly how many tools you can use because you just have a lot of them out there. So you can just select, but depending on what you want to achieve, you can select and then use them. But just remember when you're doing that, when you when you do that, you're like exploring the data. So this is where you say, okay, I'm doing exploratory statistics. Even though you want to describe, but you will see what will be the difference between describing and inferring. So now, if you remember, the V2 is larger than V1. So it means that at some point, it will be hard for you to compare V2 and V1. Like if you want to plot them together in this graph, it might be difficult for you to achieve this because they have like the two different sides. So what you do is V2 is not like a main population where you can extract some sampling sets and use them to infer something about V2. So you will use those different sampling sets to have some information and you will associate or attribute those information to V2 by inference because you are not analyzing V2 itself, but you're analyzing the sampling set out of V2. So we will do what we call sampling over here. So you build like 5 sampling sets out of V2, and now you can plug them all together with V1, and you can compare because now they have the same size. Because I was using the size of V1 as a control factor just to make sure that the sampling set out of V2 is has the same size that V1. So now I can put them all on the same plot and compare. Now you see they're pretty close to each other, especially with the mean. So, and you can also see that it looks like the size of each sampling set is about the same. Well, it's the same. When you look at the plot, it's like it's about the same, but it's the same because you can see it is represented. So it's basically the same. We have the same on both sides of the boundaries. So this is one way again to use the box. Now you can also do something different. And right now, I'm learning from the sampling sets out of V2 to know something about V2. So I'm not describing V2, I'm inferring some stuff from it from V2 because I'm not using the exhaustive data contained in V2, but I'm working with the sampling set out of V2. So I'm not describing V2, I'm like running some inference on V2. So same thing, you can just use those sampling sets to like compare the histogram right now, and then if you plot, you have this, but it's like it's hard to read. So you can either click on this one to open the graph. I don't know that I do it, so I can it's not. So that's good. So if you enlarge this, then you have it there. And you see you have V1, and then you have V2 1, V2 2, V2 3, V2 4, V2 5. Those are like the 5 sampling sets out of V2. And you can now compare. They are both coming from the same initial main random variable, so it's like a standard normal distribution. So that's why they, they should have pretty much the same shape. But again, you will not have the same sampling sets. Even if you were using the same initial main population, in this case G2, you have different histograms, meaning you have different sampling sets. So be very careful when you do this. So I think this is a good way to say uh, you hopefully you know, because I don't know the level of difficulty for anyone, but hopefully now you know how to make a difference between describing relation. Remember, if you know exactly everything about the random variable you are describing, if you're using sampling sets out of that variable, you are inferring. A good way to discriminate is to uh, think about the special case that you're dealing with. If you are dealing with something that you know you will never be able to sample completely, continuously, then just know that you are inferring. But if you are dealing with something that you know you could sample completely, continuously, then you can have the entire data set that you need to say you're describing. So just think about it. Is it continuous or is it discrete? What you are studying is continuous or discrete? And that way, I think it will be easy for you to answer discriminate between those two options. And again, I hope you also know the difference between a sampling set and a random variable outfit. So yeah, now what we can do is I can stop right here because I think I have reached the last slide in my presentation. So I can stop right here and collect your questions. Oh yeah, but by the way, next topic will be a discussion about this is just the geostatistical inference and introduction to structural analysis. So yeah, now if you have any questions, just see you can signal in that section, or you can if you don't want to ask the question right now, you can also shoot an email later.